The kind of smart that lets you see what people are really doing behind what they're saying. The kind of smart that means you can't be lied to, manipulated, or controlled anymore. Most people go through life half asleep. They take things at face value. They believe what people tell them. They think the world operates the way they were taught it operates. They spend decades being confused about why things don't work out the way they're supposed to. And the reason is simple. They're missing 7 pieces of information, 7 mental shifts that change how you see everything. And once these shifts happen in your brain, you become a completely different person. You see patterns other people miss. You predict outcomes other people can't see coming. You understand motivations that other people are completely blind to. And this makes you dangerous. Not in a violent way, dangerous in the way that means you can't be played. You can't be fooled. You can't be controlled by the same tactics that work on everyone else. And the people who make their living controlling others, they hate when someone becomes this kind of smart, because it means their tricks don't work anymore. Now I need to warn you about something before we go further. These 7 shifts are permanent. Once you see what I'm about to show you, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to being naive. You can't pretend you don't know how things actually work. And that knowledge comes with a cost. You're going to feel more isolated. You're going to feel like you're speaking a different language than most people. You're going to see things that make you uncomfortable, and you can't unknow them. So if you want to stay innocent, if you want to keep believing that people are fundamentally good and the world is fundamentally fair, stop watching now. Go back to whatever you were doing. But if you're ready to see clearly, if you're ready to understand how the game actually works, keep watching. Because in the next 30 minutes your brain is going to change, and by the end, you'll be dangerously smart. Let's start with the first shift. This is the foundation. Everything else builds on this, and this is the one most people resist the hardest, because it destroys something they desperately want to believe. Here it is. People don't mean what they say. They just don't. And I don't mean they're all liars. I mean that words are the least reliable indicator of what someone actually thinks, feels, or intends to do. Words are performance. Words are what people use to manage your perception of them. Words are what people say to get what they want in that moment. But words are almost never the truth. Think about how many times someone told you they'd do something and didn't do it. How many times someone said they cared about you and then disappeared. How many times someone promised to change and stayed exactly the same. Were they lying when they said it? Maybe, but more likely they meant it in that moment. They felt it in that moment, and then the moment passed, and the feeling passed, and the words became meaningless. Because words are cheap. Words cost nothing. You can say anything. You can promise anything, and most people do. They say whatever makes them look good or gets them what they want or makes the other person stop bothering them. Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago. He wrote that men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities that he who deceives will always find someone ready to be deceived. What he meant is that people want to believe words. They want to believe promises. They want to believe that when someone says something, they mean it. And manipulators know this. So they use words to control you. They tell you what you want to hear. They make promises they have no intention of keeping. And it works, because most people take words at face value. Most people assume that if someone said it, they must mean it. But that's not how the world works. So what changes when you make this first shift? You stop listening to what people say and start watching what they do. You stop being impressed by promises and start paying attention to patterns. Someone says they'll call you back, do they? Someone says they value you. Do their actions reflect that? Someone says they're going to change. Do they actually change, or do they just keep saying they're going to change? When you stop believing words and start believing behavior, everything becomes clear. You're not confused anymore. You're not wondering why someone who says they care keeps hurting you. You see it. They don't care. Their words say one thing. Their actions say another. And actions are always the truth. But here's what most people don't realize. Here's the part that makes this shift so powerful. Once you stop believing words, you become very hard to manipulate, because most manipulation is verbal. It's promises, it's explanations, it's justifications, it's someone talking their way out of accountability. And if you don't believe the words, the manipulation doesn't work. You just look at the pattern. You look at what they actually do, and you make your decision based on that. This infuriates manipulators, because they're used to people accepting their explanations. They're used to words working. And when they meet someone who only believes behavior, they have no power. They can talk all they want. It doesn't matter. You're watching what they do, and what they do tells you everything you need to know. So that's the first shift. People don't mean what they say. Watch behavior, not words. And once you truly internalize this, once you stop taking anyone at their word and start observing their patterns, you've taken the first step toward becoming dangerously smart. But knowing that people don't mean what they say isn't enough, because you'll still be confused about why they do what they do. Why do people make promises they don't keep? Why do people say one thing and do another? Why do people hurt the people they claim to love? And that brings us to the second shift, the one that explains all human behavior once you see it. And this one is even harder to accept than the first. Here's the second shift. Everyone operates from self-interest. Everyone, no exceptions. And before you get defensive, before you start listing all the selfless things you've done, or people you know who are genuinely good, hear me out. I'm not saying people are evil. I'm not saying people don't care about others. I'm saying that at the core of every single decision every person makes, there's a calculation. What's in this for me? Even when people are being generous, even when people are being kind, even when people are sacrificing, there's something they're getting out of it. Maybe it's feeling good about themselves. Maybe it's building a reputation. Maybe it's avoiding guilt. Maybe it's creating an obligation. But there's always something, always. And this isn't a criticism. This is just how humans work. We're wired for survival, and survival means prioritizing our own needs. Even when we help others, we're doing it because it serves us in some way. Maybe it serves our values. Maybe it serves our self-image. Maybe it serves our long-term interests. But it serves us. And once you see this, once you really see this, everything makes sense. People aren't confusing anymore. They're predictable. Because if you can figure out what someone's self-interest is, you can predict what they'll do every time. Think about someone in your life who disappointed you, someone who let you down, someone who chose themselves over you. Were you surprised? Were you hurt? Did you think they cared about you more than they actually did? Now go back and look at that situation through the lens of self-interest. What did they have to gain by choosing you? What did they have to lose by choosing themselves? When you run the math, their decision makes perfect sense. They did what was best for them. They always do. Everyone always does. And the reason you were hurt is because you thought they would choose you. But why would they? What was in it for them? If the answer is nothing, then of course they didn't choose you. This isn't personal. This is just how humans operate. Machiavelli wrote that men never do good unless necessity drives them to it. What he meant is that people don't act morally because morality is important to them. They act morally when it benefits them to act morally. When there's social pressure, when there's legal consequences, when their reputation is on the line. But when nobody's watching, when there's no consequences, when they can get away with it, most people will do what serves them, not what's right. And this isn't because people are bad, it's because people are human, and humans are self-interested. That's not a bug, that's a feature, that's survival. So what changes when you make this second shift? You stop being surprised by people. You stop being hurt by betrayal. Because betrayal isn't personal, it's just someone choosing their own interest over yours. And why wouldn't they? You stop expecting people to sacrifice for you unless you've made it worth their while. You stop thinking loyalty is automatic. You understand that loyalty exists when it serves both parties. And the moment it stops serving one party, the loyalty ends. This sounds cynical. This sounds dark. But it's just realistic. And once you operate from this understanding, you make better decisions. You stop trusting people who have no reason to be trustworthy. You stop being shocked when people choose themselves. You start building relationships based on mutual benefit instead of hope. And here's the powerful part. When you understand that everyone operates from self-interest, including you stop feeling guilty about prioritizing yourself. You stop apologizing for having boundaries. You stop sacrificing yourself for people who wouldn't do the same for you. Because you realize that self-interest isn't selfish, it's survival. And the people who are winning, the people who are thriving, they understood this a long time ago. They're not sitting around wondering why people don't appreciate their sacrifices. They're making strategic decisions based on what serves them, and they're not apologizing for it, because they know everyone else is doing the same.